Speaking of haunt, I was thinking about this the other day with bedtime. There was some pretty crazy haunting stuff that happened in that house that me and him used to live in. Now, the guy that we were renting the place from, he owned the house, and his father apparently built the house, but he was like a prominent deacon back in the day.
Yeah, like a
Just like,
pastor or priest or something.
yeah,
If it's a deacon, it's probably gonna be a priest usually because
he,
Yeah.
deacons are in Catholic society, really.
something,
Yeah.
something very religious, right? Now, this is going to kind of come into play when I kind of explain what the hell all happened. I'm on leave and I'm back in Texas. I'm at Texas Motor Speedway, actually. Bedtime calls me up and he's like, bro, the basement's flooded. I had everything I had in the basement. I had my bedroom and I like split it in half with some curtains and had like a living room down there. I thought it was cool. I was like, how bad is it? He's like, there's like 6 inches at least down there. I'm like, oh my God. So he calls the owner comes and they pump all the water out and all that stuff. So they have some plumbers there because they assume there was a leak. All the pipes and stuff were underneath in this little separate room in the basement. So they figured, some plumbing was leaking, and that's how in the hell all this happened. The plumbers were there for I don't know how long. They could not find anything.
It was at least like 2 weeks. They like dug up the backyard.
Yes.
They dug up everything to try to find this leak.
They searched and tried to figure out any reason of why that basement would have flooded. They could not come up with anything. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So one day, this is in the morning. This is before we're going to work, before we're going to PT.
I got this one.
Okay, you tell this part. You tell this part.
So you were still on your R&R because you just got back from your deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked down the stairs and I said, hey, bro, do you have your cover? Can I borrow your cover? Because I can't find mine. And I couldn't find my cover anywhere, which for those that you don't know, cover is like your military hat. I remember watching this guy pop out from around the corner.
Where my bed was.
Yeah, and look at me and then disappear. And then he just went back to his bed. And out of nowhere, I see you pop up behind me.
Yep.
Which is on the regular floor. And when you ran up behind me, I was just like scared shitless. Like, yo, dude, I thought you were just downstairs. Who's in your fucking room? You were just like, no, he's in my room. What are you talking about?
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm upstairs. I just took a piss. You're like, how long have you been up there? I'm like, 2 minutes? Like, what the fuck are you freaking out about? You're like, no, dude, there's somebody down there. There's somebody down there.
Yeah.
And you fucking rushed back up them stairs. And I'm kind of like, what the fuck is bedtime on, dude? I don't know. So I go down there. Nothing. I don't see nothing.
Nothing was down there.
Nothing was down there. With that being said, the only time that I've ever had sleep paralysis in my entire life was down in that basement. And it happened to me down there more than once. I didn't really think much of it. But if anybody knows me, they know that I have an inverted pentagram tattooed on my rib. So I didn't have that tattoo when I first moved in there.
It just randomly appeared.
Nothing.
God damn it.
Yeah, I didn't have that tattoo when I first moved in there. I got it while I was living there. And now that I think about back when all this stuff started happening, it was right after I got that tattoo. Now, I'm pretty sure he was pissed that I had what a lot of people would say is a satanic symbol. I mean, it's literally a goat's head. It's literally, I have a goat's head in an inverted pentagram with like 3 or 4 other inverted pentagrams inside of it.
Yeah, so the house my mother moved into, I'm in the military at the time, and I come home to visit, and I'm helping them move all that shit. And I noticed while we're moving everything in that there's an oil cross marked above every single window, every single door. I didn't think about anything about it at first. Then I noticed there's a flower bed in the front yard that's about the size of a human grave. I didn't think anything about it because I believe in ghosts, but I don't really believe in ghosts. I'm more of a seeing is believing kind of guy. I haven't seen anything yet, so I haven't believed it. But I started thinking back on the fact that my mother, when she was younger, that she'd woke up one night and she was unable to breathe. And she opened her eyes and she saw a headless individual, sitting on her chest with an axe in their hand, swinging at her face. She closed her eyes and it went away.
What? A headless figure swinging an axe at her.
And in this house, she has multiple inside dogs, and she just threw toys down the hallway for them. The dogs didn't chase them, but something threw them back.
That's so creepy.
What?
Yes.
And obviously you don't think your mom's lying.
No, I'm saying it's my mother, so I believe everything she says.
Speaking of stuff moving, when I get out of the military, I don't have anywhere to stay. So my dad offers up my grandpa's place. My grandpa's not in really good health. My dad's taking care of my grandpa at his house. So my grandpa lives in Duncanville. If anyone knows anything about Dallas-Fort Worth area, Duncanville's not the nicest place to live. This one time, my wife at the time, her 2 daughters, they're walking across the field to the Dollar General to go get a couple gallons of milk or something. So it's just me and my son. My son's like 7 months old at this time. So I have him in my arms. So I'm kind of worried about him because it's kind of a bad neighborhood. So I'm standing out underneath the garage port, and the little screen door is there to the kitchen. So I can still see through all the way through the kitchen. You can hear, if anything was to happen in the house, I could hear it. So I'm standing out there and I'm just watching. I'm watching them, waiting for them to come walking back because I don't want them to get harassed by anybody. And then all of a sudden, I just hear all this crashing and like shit breaking inside of the house. I'm like, somebody breaking in the fucking house right now? What the hell's going on? So I go back in there, and there's like, my grandpa had like 100 freaking magnets on his refrigerator. There was like 20 magnets like flown and thrown all throughout like the floor.
So this was after your grandfather passed?
No.
It was before he passed, okay.
This is before he passed, but I'll explain to you what my mom thinks it was. And he also had these little like 2 wooden shelves above the sink where he had like these little trinkets and like pictures of his wife and shit. 2 of those were like completely knocked off, and stuff was like all in the sink, and a couple of the trinkets were off on the counter and one was on the floor. So something moved and knocked off all of these magnets and the 2 shelves. I have no explanation how in the hell that happened. Fast forward like a month. Me and my wife at the time are in the living room. We're arguing about something. I don't even remember what the hell it was. She gets pissed off. She storms off. She goes around the corner, and you can either go left to go down to the bedrooms, or you can go right through the dining room to go back to the kitchen. I don't know which way she goes. 30 seconds later, I hear glass break in the kitchen, and I'm like pissed because I think she's in there breaking shit because she's pissed off about our argument. So I'm yelling to the kitchen, like, what the hell are you breaking in there? What the fuck is the matter with you? I hear her yell back from the bedroom, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm kind of sitting there like, and I tell her, I'm like, hey, you might want to come in here. So she walks in there with me, and the freaking coffee pot. So we had bought a new coffee pot because my grandpa's was old. Well, we put the old one on the washing machine, like all the way to the back. Washing machine wasn't on. Something took that coffee pot, threw it diagonal off of the freaking washing machine onto the floor and broke it all over the floor. Can't explain that. My grandma died in 92. I never knew her. I never saw. I don't remember. Have no memories of her. My mom said she was very particular about her kitchen. It had to be a very certain way. Nobody could screw with it. So I really feel like when we went in there, we rearranged a whole bunch of stuff. So like we changed it all up.
She's pissed about it.
I think she was pissed that we were messing with her kitchen, and all that shit happened in the kitchen. So there was one other thing that happened, and this was after my grandpa passed. We're still in his house, and I would always hear something. Every time my son would cry, he had this little toy with all these like little beads in it. Every time he cried at night, I could hear that little toy like shake a little bit. It goes by 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, dude, what the? I don't know what's going on here. I got a job, and I started getting up real early. So my wife would take my son out of the main bedroom and go sleep in the living room with him so I could actually get sleep to go to work. He would start crying in there, and the toy that was still in the room with me on the floor, I would hear it shake again. And I actually have video on my ex-wife's, one of her, like, it was like a Galaxy S3. I would sit there. I sat there for like 20 minutes one night just recording, and my son cried in the other room, and like 10 seconds later, that thing freaking moved, and I freaking have it on. I have it. I'm telling you, dude, that was so weird. But other than that, nothing else. I thought in Japan.
But other than all that crazy shit, nothing crazy has happened to me.
Nothing really else has happened, And before all that, I love Ghost Adventures. That's like my favorite TV show. Like, I like all the paranormal stuff, and nothing up until any of that had ever happened to me until I got to my grandpa's house, and then all of that crazy stuff happened.